Wednesday here on Kobold Press. I'm coming to you from the past because I'm sitting down in a recording actually with a face I'm sure you know. I'm very excited to just get to talk with Luke Gygax. Thank you so much for being here on Kobold Press to talk about our brand new Kickstarter launch, Vault of Magic. How are you today?
I'm doing good this morning, Dot. Thanks for having me on, and really thanks to the Kobold crew for letting me contribute to the Vault of Magic.
Yeah, I know that we're very excited. We've got some incredible designers on board, and I was very, very hyped when you sat down to say that you wanted to chat a little bit about what items, I don't want to spoil too much, that you might be putting in the in Vault of Magic. Now, for all of you at home that may not know, we are in the middle of a Kickstarter. It is actually launched. It's ready to go, and we are funding for it, which is a massive book of like 1,000+ magical items from the history of Kobold Press, as well as some brand new stuff, which is what we're actually here to talk about today, is some of those new items. So, yeah, definitely a book I think I'm going to have for my shelf.
Yeah, you can never have enough magic items. I mean, it's neat as a player when you see an item and you don't just immediately figure it. I think that's part of right. It's part of the game is having that wonderment about the adventure. Right, it's supposed to be an adventure. You're not just supposed to be able to go, oh, okay.
Well, I know what that does. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wand of fire. Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, super. I mean, it's a great item, but isn't it neat when you get to personalize that item a little bit in some way and come up with new ways to use it? I mean, that's what's fun about the game, is discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, if that's the case, then we're gonna have to discover a little bit more about your item. But I want to know, is this the first time that you've actually worked with Kobold, or are you coming back for another opportunity with us?
You know, I think this may be the first time that I officially worked with Kobold Press. Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously I'm familiar. Yeah, I'm totally familiar with Kobold Press. I've spoken to Wolfgang. Wolfgang's come to GaryCon before, so yes, I mean, I'm certainly a supporter of Kobold and cheer you guys on, but this is the first time I've had to actually contribute something, and very excited.
Well, that's very cool. Well, then I am like twice as excited now to hear a little bit more about what you're putting in this book. So why don't you spill the beans and tell us what items you'll be adding to Vault of Magic for us?
Right, so I came up with a couple items. It was very spontaneous. I had spoken to Wolfgang, and he told me about it, and I said, what do I want to do? And I was sitting right here in front of my computer, working on stuff. And my first idea was really going to be some cards of conjuration. So that was my initial thought, and I was working with that, and I was discussing it with my daughters. I was going, well, what do you think of this? Now they're probably going to be they were going to be color coordinated. So it's almost like, you know, now that I think about it, it sounds like a magic deck, right? That you would
okay.
right?
Yeah.
Where you would, but you'd have to you'd throw them out, and I was going to have a randomly like a D12 for each suit, and you could either find a partial or a full suit of cards, and you wouldn't know. So it's a little bit like a Wand of Wonder, a little bit like a deck of magic cards.
Yeah.
I was going down that path for a little while. I was like, you know what, this could be fun, but yeah, there's other stuff that's kind of like this. So I was like, oh, I'll put that aside. And I'll think about that. I'll think about that later. And I thought, well, what would be something, as I'm thinking of a battle, what would be something that's going on? And I'm also in the military. That's my real job is I'm a soldier. And so I was thinking, what do we do when we're fighting? I said, well, when you want to break contact with somebody, you usually try to create something that would obscure the battlefield, right? So that you could escape, right? So you can't be targeted. And think about it, same thing for D&D. A magic missile can hit anybody they can see.
Right.
But if they can't see, they can't get you, right? So that's it's very important. Reminds me of an old Monty Python skit. Where it really does. So I don't know how my brain works. I apologize.
No, that's great. It's great. I immediately knew what you were talking about, so I'm there with you.
It's the one where there's some bushes or whatever, and they say, the power of not being seen, and they ask the guy to stand up and they shoot him or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and they're like, see, now that's his mistake was he was seen, right?
He was seen, yeah, exactly.
Exactly right. Then there's 3 bushes and they blow him up when he doesn't stand up. All 3 bushes in place. Anyway, so that's the point. If you can be seen, you can be targeted, right? So I made the orbs of obfuscation. So the purpose of this orb is that you take it and you can throw it accurately up to
right.
Oh boy, I don't remember the range, but whatever thrown range is, like you would a pot of oil or some other object, right? And then it will quickly expand and fill up the area with smoke that obscures even magical sight obscures magical sight. Right, so it kind of it deadens your your infravision vision and things like that because it's hot smoke.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right, so and then also it limits oratory, the ability to speak more than 5 feet away. So I figured, okay, that's a little bit of a magical effect. So it helps disrupt your enemy, so that you could escape, or you could perhaps take some other action while they're disabled. So
right.
it's just really a handy little tool that you might not normally think about. Now, if you're using it out, it would dissipate in, I think I gave it 5 minutes, that it would dissipate unless there's a strong wind of some kind, and then it would, dissipate in 1 round as opposed to 5.
That makes sense. Something that could interesting. And if I'm correct, I was told there's like a lesser and a greater version of it, right?
There is. So that's the lesser version, and that's useful. However,
it's very useful. I'm thinking of 1,000 ways to use it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, and what a neat way to disorient some people, to stop spellcasters from targeting you, from disrupting communication. If there's a leader who's directing the battle and you throw it back there, then
it's a great distraction.
Right.
We're always looking for distractions, and usually we sacrifice somebody in the party.
Yeah. And I believe it obscures normal sight. Excuse me, I said magical sight. I misspoke. I believe it obscures normal sight. Magical sight still works. So if you had some sort of goggles or something like that allowed you to see, then you could go in and you would have an advantage on people, and they would be at disadvantage trying to attack you. So there's lots of handy ways that could be used for a rogue or other character.
Yeah.
Utilize. And the greater version, I thought, well, okay, that's neat, but what if I wanted to do some damage? I was like, fragmentation grenade or something like that. No, that doesn't make sense. How about I combine this? What else makes smoke? And of course, there's a white phosphorus version of a smoke grenade. And white phosphorus is a substance that burns when it touches the air, and it burns very hot. It's an incendiary type device. So that essentially does the same thing. It creates a lot of smoke, but it's also going to
it would also burn. Air. Yeah, it ignites the air. Okay, that's very cool.
Well, actually, it shoots out fragments of rock, essentially phosphorus material, and when it hits you, it burns.
It burns. In water, it's a chemical reaction. Oof.
Exactly. So it's obviously not
That's nasty.
It is, right? So I just made nasty. It. I don't think I made it super powerful, but what I did is I had it continue to burn, so it maybe does so much damage on the first round, and then descends for, I think, 4 or 5 rounds, creating damage. So that has a couple different purposes. Obviously, creating damage, right? That's no good. But if you're taking damage, it makes it a lot harder to do things, right? Yeah. So, if you're a spellcaster, maybe you have to make some combat casting rolls, or things of that nature. It might, if it's an unintelligent beast, it could make it, start running away, or worry about rolling around on the ground. Or so there's various ways that this could be used to not only cause damage, but maybe even distract something that's more powerful, but unintelligent, or start something on fire.
I'm always a fan of those spells or the combat actions too that last. Because sometimes you end up in like these long combats, and it's like you can really run through your spell slots very quickly. And to have an item that does some damage over time, fire it does a lot of that. Is it's always nice to have in your back pocket as like a helping hand, to just like chip away at extended battle. So that's a really cool way of doing that. And I think there's something really neat about a chemical burn, which is kind of what it is. It's a chemical burn that we don't see a lot of. The like alchemical means of that, which is really, really neat. That's very cool.
I thought, okay, well, that's something I don't think we have necessarily done. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen various beads or things that explode, but so I just described it to kind of look like an orb, and I talked about some sigils on there and the color of the body and
Yeah.
what colored band it has around it, which essentially mimics what you might see in a technological grenade
Yeah.
in this fantasy version of that. So, and that sounded neat. And so I talked it
Yeah.
over with my daughter Miriam, and she thought it was neat. She approved. So I said, okay, that's what we're going with. Yep,
Stamp of approval. Yeah, I
that's
love
right.
it. So can it can be tossed by anybody. You don't have to be a
Anybody.
magical. That's really helpful too, because let's say you end up with a party full of fighters or like
Mhm.
melee combat base. It's really nice to have the occasional like magic grenade basically to like suss out some of the magic you may
Yeah,
not have if your party's not at balance too. That's kind of cool.
yeah, absolutely. What do you do if the spellcaster goes down or something? Well, you can
Yeah.
throw the thing, make it a little harder for someone while you go pour a potion down somebody's spell or give them a good berry or whatever it is, and they get back
Yeah.
up and they can take care of themselves. But there's all sorts of times when you may need that, and then what would be even better is if someone thinks it's just going to be, oh, you threw a lesser orb at them and and sure they okay, that was disruptive, but they know what's coming. They're not too surprised, and they chased you down again, and then you throw that in there that could throw the
Yeah. Man, there's so
surprise.
many cool uses for this.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and just gosh, if you're in a dungeon type environment as opposed to outdoors, that smoke it could
Ooh,
cause a lot
yeah.
of problems. I didn't even think about the choking hazard. That would be
Yeah, yeah.
an inventive use. It would be maybe like a stinking cloud effect that could
Mm-hmm.
be there, or I mean, I guess eventually it could cause you damage if you're not able to get to fresh air or something like that. So there's other uses that I hadn't even anticipated yet.
Yeah. That's very okay. Okay, so this is fun. What do you think the most obscure use of this item could be? Like, what is the weirdest way you could possibly use this item? I love thinking outside the box sometimes about these things. What
Well,
could I use this?
I mean, I suppose you could, the greater version could be used to start fires pretty easily, right?
Oh,
So if there's somebody who's hiding on the top of a building or something, and it's difficult to get at, maybe there's a way to throw it in through a window or use a mage hand or
yeah,
something that would deposit it closer. That's great. You don't even have to throw it, right? You could
yeah,
use all sorts of other methods of delivery
yeah. Or
to
like
get it
more
somewhere.
tactical means of it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really cool.
don't have to
Man,
expose yourself at all.
yeah, yeah.
So
Don't have to expose yourself at all. Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
yeah, so I think
Hmm.
yeah, it's sometimes it's fun to think about technology in magical terms. I mean, I do that all the time for what would this be like, or it having and I guess that harkens back to the roots of gaming. My dad and Jim Ward would exchange. My dad would often dungeon master a bunch in Castle Greyhawk.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was tired of DMing, right? You get tired of running after a while, and so Jim Ward had written, Metamorphosis Alpha, which was first science fiction role playing game, and so he had the party find some sort of transporter in the deep down in Castle Greyhawk, and they ended up magically being transported aboard the Starship Warden. Uh,
That's awesome.
and then my dad got to take a character and play a character, and Jim ran them through there, and they became the Vigilists, and actually they are one of the few groups of players that survived. But anyway, that's an aside. Uh, but those characters had to find, they had to figure out what that technology was, and
Right, right. Learn to like use new things. Yeah, because I'm thinking. I mean, it's a really cool item. And the like the player that loves to play an alchemist in me is like, oh, I wonder what other kinds of salts you could put in this, or like, could you color explode them because they're chemicals, right? So you could just have a chemical bond that makes it. So now you've got color exploding salt bombs, or like my mind just like is wandering on all the many things that you could possibly do with it.
yeah,
So cool.
there's lots of things that you could do, and if you think about it, you could combine it with other types of magical effects, pyrotechnics. You could have
Yeah.
some sort of shadow creature or that would be summoned out of it if you wanted to. I mean, there's no limit to what you could do with an orb that you
Yeah.
trigger it and throw. And isn't, if you're playing an artificer or something of that
Mm-hmm.
nature, you could probably, be handy that way. As long as other classes can use it, that's really expands
Right, right.
capabilities of the other characters.
Yeah. I'm even thinking the evil magic user, and he's like, okay, if I toss this, all I need to do is put them inside of some kind of like force field, right? What is it? Is it there's a high level spell, I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. Anyways, if you're on the inside of it, nothing can get to you, but it also means if all of that smoke is on the inside with you, you get that choking effect, right? Like you could bind somebody inside of that.
I think it's just a wall of force, right? Wall of force lets air through, I think.
Yeah, air through. What is the one? Now I think they get a check against it if you're not doing it willingly, because it's technically meant to be used as a shield, not to trap somebody, but
that's more fun.
But it's more fun, right? Let me break it. Let me break it a little bit. Yeah, no. So that's very, very cool. And over the years, you've made a ton of magical items. I can only imagine like the massive list of them. But do you have a favorite? Like, do you have a favorite magical item? Maybe you didn't design it. Maybe somebody else did. But I think magical items are so cool and unique. So.
Yeah, I mean the favorites are probably some standard ones, just because they're so neat. It may be a boring one, but I've always loved Displacer, which, for me, not getting hit, right? Not getting hit is very important. So if they don't know where you're at and that first attack misses, yes, that's so good, right?
Yeah.
No matter what, so even if they surprise you and you're going to get, an assassin who's going to assassinate you, or a thief or a rogue is going to get the quadruple attack, they miss, right? So I think that is probably my favorite magic item from a utility purpose. But of course, the chaotic person in me loves both the Wand of Wonder and the Deck of Many Things. Those are as a kid, I read them and I was like, whoa, this is so awesome. I had every party that I ran, like for my neighborhood or my sisters or whatever, I would give them like, it'd be first level, I'd be like, Wand of Wonder, get one.
Yeah, what do you get? Wand of Wonder. Yeah.
Why not? Just because I want to see what happens,
Yeah. Chaos ensues. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a rhinoceros down a 10-foot corridor or whatever it is.
Right in the middle of nowhere for no reason. Yeah.
That happened. Yeah, that was awesome.
And the great thing is you don't need a reason. I always tell people, I was like, if it's chaos, I don't have to explain it as a GM.
Exactly.
It just is. It just is. Awesome. Well, anything else you want to tell us about the orbs? Before we move into some more questions, maybe outside of the Vault of Magic realm, but yeah.
Yeah, the orbs were a lot of fun to create, and I would just say, I thought of them. Maybe I spent 2 or 3 hours in total, and that's because I discussed a couple ideas with my daughters. But it was fun, and so I would encourage people. This is a great jumping off point. Make cool magic items for your players. Think of what they like to do, and then maybe tailor something that will interest them. And if you can do that for the party, what a great way to put them on an adventure or quest to find these weapons of power or whatever it is, and arm them. So it's just a neat way to really involve your players and giving them new things to figure out, new ways to use it. I think that's what is exciting about D&D. Again, it's the sense of what's new, a way to figure out problems and problem solving and puzzle solving creatively in it and with a group, and that just adds one more component that you can use to do that. And you asked about favorite magic items. Another one came back to me, and it's not from Dungeons and Dragons. I played long ages ago, way back when yesteryear when I was in college. I played Rollmaster. And I had essentially like a paladin type character, a female, elven female paladin, I think is what I was playing. And there was a sword that fed off my constitution. So it was maybe a bit like an Elric kind of sword in a way, but it would permanently lower my constitution score, but I could go into death speed that would give me like a triple haste for so many rounds, and it would increase damage and stuff. But there's only so many times like it's literally eating my, my character in order to power. But when you're in that desperate moment, you tap into there, and that's just one of those things where it's like you're making the sacrifice, but man, you get to be
powerful.
Right. Yeah. Right. Isn't it all about power, guys? Especially as a relatively younger.
Sometimes it is. I tell people that sometimes it's just about the power. Just like
when you're 17,
of course it is. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, so that was great, and enjoy those magic items. You got so many to choose from. You can also find ways to reskin your magic items. So instead of a ring or whatever, it could be an amulet, it could be something else, right? Some other device that people don't recognize it quite as readily, and maybe there's some discovery with it. Mm-hmm. So just have some fun, get some role play use out of those magic items, and you can probably make it fun too.
What do you think is the key ingredient to a great magic item? Like, what's your chemical X that makes the thing that comes out the end, that like really makes a great magic item?
I think what having not just a straightforward use. I mean, yes. So yeah, I mean, like the Displacer Cloak, what a wonderful item, but really you can't use that in a way, or at least I haven't. I mean, somebody tell me right in the chat, tell me what's this other way you could use a Displacer Cloak that would be that would allow you to do something unexpected with it. So I guess being able to use a magic item in a new or unexpected way to surprise your dungeon master.
Oh yeah, okay.
Service, so that they didn't anticipate how you would
actually use it. So like a bit of utility. It needs like multiple utility. Yeah, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So I think that's what's fun. Figuring out new ways to do stuff, using a spell in a way that people didn't anticipate is also fun, or creating a spell.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. All right. Okay, so I have to say, you're wearing this snazzy T-shirt that says something about a GaryCon. What even is a GaryCon? You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, well, honestly, I've had people ask me, is it because it's in Gary, Indiana? No, that is not how I came up with it. No, it's not. So GaryCon is a memorial convention that I hold in honor of my father each year in March. This year, it'll be March 25th to 28th. And typically what we would gather in my hometown where Dungeons and Dragons was created, and that's Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. That's where my dad spent the majority of his life and where he passed away. But this year, due to the pandemic that's currently, still jamming up everyone's plans, we're going 100% virtual. So,
cool.
So we're going to be gaming. GaryCon has gone global. We're worldwide. We have a contingent in Australia and Germany. So we'll have gaming 24 hours a day during GaryCon. Again, that's Thursday the 25th through Sunday, March 28th. We'll be doing some streaming as well on our Twitch channels. We have like 3 Twitch channels going. So GaryCon, Gaxmore, GaryCon Lake Geneva, and GaryCon Blighted Lands, just because so many people love to game and want to showcase what they're doing. But we have great guests. Kobold Press is, of course, one of our sponsors. So thank you guys very much for being there. They'll be in our virtual vendor hall, which is also very important. So not only as a convention organizer do I want people to come and play games, and because hey, we have to keep GaryCon going. It's a celebration. It's a memorial. We want people to be there, and it's a hard It's really a new challenge for us, because each year we just have grown and grown and grown, and we're in a small town, and so it's never been a problem attracting people. But here we've got the whole world to talk to and bring in. But we need, I want to keep it going, keep the community strong, and very importantly, give our vendors and artists and others a chance to interact with you guys.
Yeah.
Because when this pandemic will end, we're going to get through this, and when we do, I want to be able to have a GaryCon in person again, where all of us can gather and have that special camaraderie that we feel when we're all together and get to shake dice and swap stories. I also want that vendor hall to be filled with a variety of creative folk who are able to make a living doing this, doing what they love, because of us. We're buying their stuff, and artists who are drawing neat, cool pictures so that I can get guys like James B. West to continue doing the artwork here. So it's about keeping our beloved community and our hobby going. So play a game. Yeah. We're not going to be sitting next to one another, and some of that is different. And to be honest with you folks, prior to this pandemic, I was a naysayer to the virtual gaming. I admit it. I was like, bah, humbug.
You heard it here first.
That's right. Back in my day, we didn't have any of this fancy video conferencing stuff. So, but because of this pandemic, and I just had to embrace it, right? Because gosh, last year for GaryCon 12, we're on GaryCon 13 this year.
Wow.
So GaryCon 12, we were 2 weeks away from GaryCon, and we had to pivot from a live event to a virtual event. And it was only by some of the help of some amazing people on the staff, and particularly Casey Rift. Matt Everhart goes by Casey Rift. He'd been helping with virtual gaming. Him and his team really picked up the ball and ran with it. And we had like 2,000 people participate in like 600 events in 2 weeks. It was like that. So that was amazing. And from that experience, I learned, well, you know what? This is really about the same as playing in person. Sure. Of course, there's some differences. I'm not able to give someone a hug or shake a hand or sign a book or whatever the case may be afterwards, but I get about 95% of that experience this way, and it's sure better than nothing. And so, I've tried to embrace virtual gaming throughout 2020 and now into 21, so that we can keep learn, keep this community strong, and find ways to not only play games, but also support each other. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm lucky. I'm an essential worker. Like I said, I'm a full-time California National Guardsman. So this year the last 12 months has been very busy as there's been a lot of emergencies. But many people are at home and are working from home. And so they may not have much real social contact, and it can get really lonely. So what a great way to stay in touch with people. What a great way to make new friends from wherever. I get to see one of the fun parts about virtual gaming is I get to game with my friend Heath, who lives in Australia. Heath Farm, good guy. So if you want to do that, if you want to join us and you're anywhere around the globe, just go to play.garycon.com, and that will take you to the site, the latest site on tabletop.events, where we host our badges and that sort of stuff. Pick up a badge. Our badges are cheap. They're $20. Comes 4 days of gaming, all inclusive. And because of our generosity of several sponsors, every single one of those badges comes with at least double its cost in benefits. Whether it's 3 months of Fantasy Grounds for free, virtual swag from a variety of sources, free 7 days of Tabletopia, which is a wonderful board game, VTT. So you spend $20, you're going to walk out with about $50 worth of value. Wow. And same thing for the upper tier badges at $50 and $100. You'll come out with much more swag, so it's a great deal. You're going to see lots of cool stuff. And
I'm already getting excited. And like Luke said, Kobold's going to be there. We're going to be hanging out. I think we're doing a panel and probably an actual play. We're still sorting what actual play, but we're working on that. We're going to be there rolling dice one way or the other. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And I know I'm really excited. I know the pivot to online is always so hard. I think it's so hard for everybody, but you're right. I like your optimistic perspective. We're coming out of this pandemic, y'all. Yeah. And until then, we're just going to keep trucking along because we want to be able to come out of the pandemic with a stronger community, not a weaker one.
And And just so you know, I mean, even I had some close friends who are convention organizers, obviously, because we call and commiserate about how much work it is and why did we get ourselves into this and what are we thinking? Uh, but it's a labor of love. And what's the payoff for the hardworking staff, myself included?
Yeah.
What's the payoff for doing all this work? It's not the massive piles of cash and the yacht that I'm driving, that sort of stuff. That's not it. It's really seeing everybody at a convention laughing, smiling, the tension, the excitement. That's your big payoff. And so now we're going 2 years without getting that payoff, yet we're still in the trenches slogging through, right? So it's hard for us, hard to stay motivated. And I've had some friends talk to me and say, man, if we have to go 2 years, I'm not sure that I want to do it again. I may just throw on the cards.
Yeah.
And I say, no. I said, no, don't do that. People love these conventions and they love the convention in particular a lot, and don't do that. And I think part of it is, well, what if I've lost a step? What if it's been 3 years since I've done this? And of course, you throw an event once a year, so it's very different to do a virtual event, different problem sets.
Yes, it is.
And yeah, it is, but it's still pain in the butt. But the fear is, well, will I make mistakes coming back to a physical convention? And the answer is yes, 100%. But everyone's going to forgive you because they're going to be so excited to be there and they're going to be so thankful that you took the. So reach out there, tell your friends. It's going to be okay. We'll get back to it and keep your gaming group going.
I was about to say, yeah, until then, we're just going to laugh online instead of in person. They laugh mean the same, no matter whether they're online or in person. Somebody told me that the other day, and I was like, I like that. That's very nice.
It is.
So very cool. All right, well, yes, go check out Gary Con. We'll be there. He'll be there.
I will.
Hopefully you'll all be there. It'll be great, and we'll give a little bit of a celebration here in March as, New Year's off to a full start now. All right, well, as we round out our little interview, I like to do something fun with our guests, or I'm doing it for Vault of Magic. We're gonna do a question speed round. So I'm gonna ask you a question, and I just want you to answer it as fast as you possibly can. No right or wrong answers, just whatever kind of comes out, which I think is always a blast. Now, some of these questions came from the Kobold staff. Some of them did not, but I'll be excited to see what you answer. Okay. If you had to choose any class to actually be, which class would it be?
Magic user. Or wizard, I guess. Sorry, you can tell I'm an old school.
Yeah, magic user. What is your favorite dungeon?
Ooh, Sajkanth.
Okay. If you had to choose one monster to be your best friend forever, what monster would it be?
Well, this is going to sound dumb, but you said it's the first thing. A bugbear, because my daughter Sabrina is playing a bugbear ranger named Serena, and she was raised by the elf, which is Amira, her middle sister, so as a baby. So she's kind of a friendly bugbear.
I love that. And then from Kobold staff, what is your favorite trap?
Ooh, there's a trap that I read. Well, come on. There's some classic traps.
Right.
Right. And I have a green devil face hanging on my wall, so that's from that's not even really that much of a trap, but it's still such a classic.
Still such a good one, yeah.
It is. It's just beautiful. But I read was it Grimtooth? Grimtooth traps. It's from way back. So you probably don't. Maybe
I was about to say that's way back, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Grimtooth from the early 80s. And so it's just a fun trap, and it's there's like a magic. It looks like a magic spear, really finely crafted spear in a statue's hand, and you have to wade across. It's in the middle of a fountain, like a vast fountain, and so when you walk into the fountain, the spear arm goes down, and it's like a javelin of lightning or something like that. It's activated.
Oh, and it
electrocutes everybody in the water. So
ooh, that's sneaky.
It is
that's
sneaky.
So sneaky.
Like that. Yeah. So that's fun. Yeah. So just taking mundane stuff and doing that. Another one I like is putting people in a constricted area and then just having this is I don't know if it's a trap, but it was a neat idea I had where I used kobold, so it may be appropriate for Kobold Press.
Oh.
So there's a tiny module that I wrote with a bunch of people, Tim Cass, Frank Menser, and some other folks, called the Cave of Wisdom, Chris Clark. And it was just for GaryCon. We did like 50 of them a number of years ago. And it's this little pamphlet book. We each wrote an adventure, and you had to go through these gates, and each one of them was our encounter. So mine was basically you come in some standing stones, and you're walking around, and some kobolds ambush you, and then they run away, the ones that survive, into a little barrow area of the mound. And of course, what do you do as a party, right? You're like fifth or sixth, you're like kobold.
Right.
And it's like
this is easy XP.
It's clobber time, right? You're going there, right? Yeah, exactly. This is yeah. So you go into the tunnel, right? You crawl in after them, but it narrows down and it turns, right? And you go down, and so it whittles down. So you're kind of scooting along, but they have a heavy crossbow at the end where it turns. So they throw pots of oil down there and torches and shoot you with a heavy crossbow, and they have a little grate that they put across there. So you're now in a flaming tunnel, and I don't care what level you are, you're in a flaming tunnel and you can't, how are you going to miss with this crossbow, right? So I'm like, yeah, sure, they're less than a hit die, no problem. They're easy. But guess what? You got to get to them. So it usually irritates the players.
Yeah, I bet it does. It probably makes them so mad that they got tricked. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, those are good traps. All right. Well, as we round out today's interview, any last minute thoughts or comments for the chat about Vault of Magic and these orbs?
Oh yeah. So I'm interested in hearing what you guys come up with for neat uses for this orb. So there's going to be, 20 or 30 that you and I hadn't thought about, because just like when you're GMing and you think something is, this is obvious, when you look at it, this is exactly how people are going to do it, and then nope, it's something completely different, and you're like, okay, here we go, and you got to think on your feet of how to adapt with it. These things are going to be another thing to confound DMs. They're going to, wow, man, how am I gonna adjudicate this one? So I'd like to hear about that.
I was about to say, I imagine Future Dot is going to be in a chat with everybody tossing out ideas as fast as they can go that we totally missed. That's my hope. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting. I know it was like very early your time, so I appreciate the great ideas and the energy and sharing a little insight on magic items and some use. Yeah,
Coffee.
Some use for the how to create magic items, how to use them, and I very much look forward to, of course, the official print here of Vault of Magic, where we can get our hands on these snazzy orbs you've created.
Sure. So make sure you back it.
Yep, so it's there. Future Dot's going to drop you a link in chat. I also know that very much, so you can click there and go check out the Kickstarter. And I imagine Future Dot will also drop you a link to GaryCon. So come out and support. Let's keep our gaming community strong, and Kobold Press will be there in full swing to make sure that we're having a good time. Thanks everybody again for being here, and
marvelous treasures galore, ancient weapons, and sparkling armor. Discover these prizes and more for your 5th edition campaign. This is the Vault of Magic. Follow the link to find out more.
And we're back with the second half of today's interview for Kobold Chats. I am joined by Lauren Urban. Lauren, thank you so much for coming out to chat with us.
I am so excited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so if you missed the first half of today, let me fill you in. We're running a Kickstarter that is blowing through stretch goals left and right. I know that, again, I'm a past Dot by the time you're watching this in the future, everybody, but
timey-wimey stuff.
But timey-wimey stuff. Right now in the past, we just broke the $200,000 mark on the Kickstarter, which is huge.
Cheers.
So I'm sure Future Dot right now is putting a link in chat that you should click on to go check it out, because the Kickstarter is running through and into March, so you still have time to get in on that. They have released like tons of new items. We've had all these guest reveals, cough, Lauren, and and as well as a few other things. And I just have to say right now, the last unlocked guest item reveal was the Butter of Disbelief.
Which made me so happy to see that from Megan and Todd. Like, that is so up their alley.
So good. That's just so good. Just reading that makes me very happy. So here we are. Thank you all in the audience for being here with us today, as we're going to dive deeper into this book of 800 magical items that Kobold Press is currently running on Kickstarter. So Lauren, tell everybody who are you?
Hi, I am currently the community manager for Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms. I'm also a professional oboist by trade, and I just play and DM D&D games for podcasts and on streams. I play on D4 on Sundays. I play my Dragonborn cleric Orkira, and I run Dungeon Drunks, which is a podcast that I've been running with 4 friends of mine for many, 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 many years. And then in between all of that, I make some fun magic items, and I get really excited to join Kobold Press and doing all kinds of fun stuff.
Yes, all the fun stuff. Okay, very cool. Yeah, I love my D4 crew. A lot of Atlanta folk from that, so shout out to Atlanta. Woo woo.
Yay.
So okay, very, very cool. So now, is this the first time that you've worked with Kobold?
Yes. Yeah. I was
Okay.
super excited. I love their stuff. I have all the Tome of Beasts, and I know, I use and know a bunch of the products. So when I got asked to create something for the book, I was really flattered, because there are some amazing designers on here. And while I have homebrewed a lot and I've performed a lot and I've dabbled a lot, I don't have a lot published. So
Okay.
it was really nice to be asked. I felt very honored.
Oh, well, I'm sure I was very honored to see that I was going to get to interview you about your magic
Aw.
item, because I really love your magic item. Actually, I have a character, maybe we'll get to talk about him, that would be obsessed with this magic item. So tell us what item it is that you're putting for us inside of Vault of Magic.
So I have created what's called the Teapot of Soothing, which is a magic item that you basically use once a day and have a chance to sit and have some tea with some friends, some enemies, just some people. Anybody who participates in drinking the tea gets some temporary hit points, and the person who is serving the tea gets advantage on persuasion checks. And the teapot itself, when you use it, it creates tea perfectly right. You don't have to do anything. It's what I've always wanted out of tea, which is, hey, none of the work and all of the fun.
Wow.
Because I'm that person who makes tea and is like, great, and I put the infuser in, and then 10 minutes later goes, oh, I forgot I had tea. And I'm like, all right, let me try this again. So the teapot just creates tea perfectly the first time, and everybody sits and has a chance to chat.
I love that. It's a very it's clearly not, it could be used as a social combat weapon. Like,
Yes.
if we want to call it a weapon, it would be like a social combat weapon. But I just love that it's not a weapon. It's kind of this everyday item that gives you and everybody around you a little bit of boost, so you can have some really great convo. It's the item we need coming out of 2020.
Yeah. I mean, if it could also offer hugs, that would pretty much be the best thing ever. But that's a little, I didn't want to go down that road just yet. But yeah.
Sterile hugs. Okay, so tell me, in terms of developing this item, I'm guessing your love of tea had something to do with it. But what is the process for developing a magic item? You said, you've done a lot of GMing. You're clearly a player. You play a lot. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of magical items. You've probably created a lot of magical items. What is a process like in making a magic item for you?
It's usually a mixture between I get inspired by something and I get inspired by a need.
Yeah.
So this item in specific was inspired by just my love of tea, and also just wanting to have. I really like magic items that are that weird multi-use thing, that are not like weapons are super cool, armor is amazing, wands and stabs and all of that. That is just the best thing for my character. But the things I usually gravitate towards are the items that are not immediately, I don't want to say useful, but like that are not I know exactly what to do with this.
Yeah.
And especially the ones that have social uses, that have inspirational social uses that can get you to talk to other people, because that's my favorite thing about D&D.
Yeah.
Is characters talking to other characters talking to NPCs. That kind of character interaction is my bread and butter. So that literally was how this magic item came about. Was I wanted to create something that was useful outside of combat, that even the players who are into crunchy, kick down the door, want to fight the monsters would want to use, because it has a mechanical benefit. And so I wanted to kind of appeal to both sides of the D&D coin, and that's how this was. Plus, I don't know about you, but when I sit and drink tea, I really do feel like I get some temporary hit points.
Yeah, for sure.
It helps me get through the day. So
I love that. Yeah. So it's so interesting, magic items, because I'm such a GM, right? I'm always GMing, so I'm always like, what evil way could I use this? Like, what bad guy would use this? And a lot of magic items are usually for rogue classes or your combat classes, like we were saying, and so you don't get a lot of things that boost charisma, which helps like sorcerers, right, boost out of charisma. There would be other classes that benefit from this in like a weird way that's not a robe, because we know wizards only ever get wands, books, and robes. They only ever get wands, books, and robes. And how cool is it to be like, let me pour you a cup of this very charismatic tea, and then we're gonna have a conversation. It's kind of it's a very interesting item that I think boosts stats in a way that we don't often see with magic items.
And I wanted it to be something that wasn't a flat out like charm thing. I wanted it to be, all right, because you are serving tea to whoever, that right there, no matter what your relationship is with these people, whether it is, all right, we're having a parlay with an enemy, or sitting down with two different sides. I'm sitting down with my friends after we've had an argument. I'm sitting down with my friends in the morning, and we're going to plan out the day. Whatever it is, the fact that you are the one doing the serving, automatically people are a little more, persuaded by you because you're doing something nice for them. And so I like the idea of this can help not just the bards and the sorcerers and the ones who are already charismatic, but those who want to be able to help their friends, or want to be able to at least inspire. The barbarian can serve the tea. I mean, why not? Why not be the person? And then you don't necessarily have to be the person who drives the conversation. You could be the person helping. You could be the person, standing by, to just be there with the one thing and a little fill on your cup.
Yeah. It's like a buff. It's a buff too. Wow. Such a cool item. Okay. So you put a lot of personal into this magic item in terms of its process and development, because clearly you love tea. Right? Cheers. But in terms of magical items you have received, have you ever received, like, what is probably the best magic item you've ever received as a player? Or maybe you're like, no, I got the best magic item, I gave it as a GM. But like, what is the coolest magic item you've ever seen in play?
Ones that are not homebrew is the alchemy jug, by far. Alchemy jug is by far my favorite magic item. I know everybody gravitates towards the mayonnaise, but the whole jug is just amazing.
It's amazing. Okay, so I almost brought this up in another interview I was doing, but it wasn't quite relevant. No, I didn't want to be like, yeah, my favorite magic item's a jug. It is actually one of my favorite magic items. And actually this teapot kind of reminds me of that, because I don't think the jug brews tea.
It does not.
It can make
water. It can make a lot of really useful stuff. And it is the quintessential, when I was talking about magic items that are multi-purpose, that are not necessarily combat focused, but I've used the alchemy jug in combat before, that have this kind of interaction that you can be creative with. Like, those are the things I gravitate towards, and the alchemy jug has been an inspiration for me for a while. I have actually created a box version that makes solids instead of liquids.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's that, those kind of items. I mean, I've also created some weapons and things for my players, especially for some of my players who none of the official magic items really work, and so I tweak something, or I craft something, or I get inspired by something, and that as a DM gives me a ton of joy when I see them, kicking ass in a fight because I gave them a super cool bow. But personally, I want, give me all the alchemy jugs.
Yeah, give me Just an army of alchemy jugs. You're all screwed. I've used it before in combat too with honey. Honey, I don't know why honey is always my favorite thing for the alchemy jug. Okay, so speaking of obscure uses, what is the most obscure use you think you could come up with for the use of this Teapot of Soothing?
So,
or I say ridiculous, whichever you prefer.
Well, I say it is not a combat item. Tea is hot.
Yeah.
And I could see someone, I could see a bard using this, cutting words and then opening the pot up and just, throwing. Also, it's a cast iron pot, so you could throw it.
It's true. You could actually wail on somebody with it, technically.
Have you ever been hit with I've dropped a cast iron pot on my foot before. It sucks. It sucks. And teapots tend to be thick.
Yeah.
And you could
heavy?
definitely. Yeah.
Oh.
Hot water, boiling hot water in a cast iron teapot. I would not want that. No, I would nope out of that fight very quickly. It would be kind of the opposite of the intended use, but I would find it amusing.
Wow. Yeah.
There would be no temporary hit points given out that day.
No. Definitely not. And I feel like the barbarian. Okay, I love this idea of a barbarian swinging a teapot, y'all. What a great character idea. Can we talk about a barbarian? It'd be more like brass knuckles, right? Depending on how large your barbarian is, by the time your hand loops in, it's like knuckle fitted hot teapot.
Yeah.
Wow, that is vicious and metal.
Literally and figuratively, Or a monk. Or a monk swinging this.
Okay, so I mentioned this in our green room beforehand. I actually have a monk character who's obsessed with tea. His name is Rufus. He's a big boy, and he loves tea and soup because tea and soup make everything better.
They do.
Tea and soup make everything better. And he believes
this is just facts.
It's just facts. And so he eventually opened a tea and a soup shop, but he would be very impressed with this item.
Oh, good. Yeah. And while you can only use it once a day, there's no reason why you can't have more than one.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, everybody's got their flavors of tea. And so it intentionally makes tea for whoever is pouring. But, you get everybody pouring their own tea. And
now I want a pirate that always calls a parlay. And then he serves tea. His trick is that he serves this tea during the parlay.
Yeah, absolutely.
To get out of all of his problems. Wow.
I mean, you still have to, you only get advantage on the persuasion checks. So you still got to be persuasive. You still have to say the right things. You still have to be convincing, but it helps. It helps a lot. Yeah.
And you
because
get tea.
Tea makes everything better.
It's true. All right. So let's see. What else? What other questions do I have written down here? So when you are creating magic items, there are usually kind of two ways. It's either created for a campaign. So the big bad guy uses the item, right? Or we need to go get this item from X, Y, and Z and bring it back here for safekeeping. Or there's this kind of new idea of developing under story and the characters themselves, developing magic items around the character. Thoughts on that? This was actually a really interesting conversation we had last week, and I was like, this is not something I've thought about, but there are these kind of two ways, you develop a magic item for a character, or you develop it for the larger, campaign as a whole, and I was like, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, definitely when I look at my magic items that I've created for games, they're very character-based. They're very, most of the magic items I'm making for players, usually. And then if the big bad has it, it's because they're a dragon and it's part of the loot, or
Right.
it's something like that. But I definitely see that. I do also just get inspired and make items, or make spells, or I play enough and I DM enough. And oftentimes I just think of the thing that I would want, but often, as a player, you don't want to be like, hi, DM, here is the thing that I have crafted. Please put it in the game for me.
Yes, please.
And so as a player, sometimes I get inspired of like, well, this would be a cool thing I want. And so I just go ahead and make it and I stick it up somewhere. I do a lot of chatting with people on Twitter and we'll come up with things. That's also how I get a lot of my ideas for one shots, is just hanging out and being inspired by random things. And so I think my third category of it's inspired by the big bad, it's inspired by your players, is just you're just inspired and you don't have a place to put it. And the teapot kind of is that. It is the thing that I was inspired to make that didn't necessarily have a home, and now it does.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. A home alongside, 800 other items, which I think is really cool. A literal vault of magic items, which is very, very cool. So
you're going to have the teapot, and then you're going to have that butter.
I know.
And you're going to have a whole spread in the morning.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Actually, I heard there's also a magic spice rack in there as well. I hope I didn't just spoil it. That might have been huge spoilers. Spoiler alert.
We might have to cut that.
Yeah, spoiler alert, chat. There might be spices in it. The book might be spicy. That I can say. See? Ooh. There we go. The Vault of Magic might be spicy, but I'm pretty sure there's one. But I am here for the Butter of Disbelief and this Teapot of Soothing. Actually, in fact, I might have to send those over to Rudy, because we are currently running a Monday night show all about owning a restaurant in the free city of Zobek. And I feel like these items deserve to be in their up-and-coming little restaurant.
There you go.
They may find some
mental
good
note.
Use for the Teapot of Soothing. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So,
could you imagine? Imagine being a waiter, and this is the teapot you use when you serve tea.
Yeah.
So that by the end of the meal, people have been so impressed by you and your service that they leave extra tips.
Oh my gosh, the dream,
right?
The extra tip. Yeah. Wow. Talk about that. Now that's a great use. Okay, well, I feel inspired.
Oh, good.
I feel super inspired. Yeah, I'm gonna have to be like, y'all, we gotta get this teapot in here. Now I just want to make a character based on this teapot. Like, I've got so many character ideas. It's crazy. Okay.
That's the best. That's the
best.
Right?
When you get really inspired by something, I love that. All right. So obviously, we unfortunately can't take questions because, well, you and I are recording, just me and you. So instead, I'm going to ask, is there anything else you want to share about the Teapot of Soothing or your time writing for Vault of Magic before we do a lightning round of questions?
Can we show the art?
Yes. Oh, the art. Yes, the art is up. It's been up the whole time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was super excited about that art.
Talk about it.
In the description, it says it's a cast iron teapot. And I had a mental image of one that I own. That is a black teapot that I got years and years and years ago. It's got a dragon on the top, so it's a different style. But mentally, that's kind of what I was picturing. And then with the clouds moving across it. And so when I just got a chance to see the art, and it's so good. It's so good. And I love the wrapping at the top. And like, it's so beautifully simple. Mm-hmm. Especially when you think of it as a magic item, but it is just so beautifully crafted as an art piece that I want that teapot. I want it in real life, even without the magic.
Years ago, I came up with this idea in my head about like how liches become liches. I swear this has a point and totally relevant to the teapot. So I came up with this idea about how liches become liches, and it's like a multi-step process, obviously, because you got a lot to do to become a lich. But the last thing that you have to do is choose a phylactery. And the Liches Council forces you to go into a massive chamber full of magic items. And you have to pick the item, or at least bring an item, as your phylactery. But you inevitably give up the magic of this magic item. It's like sacrifice to be the thing it is. And I love this item because it's so understated. And in a room full of like other items, either the person's going to be very drawn to something like that, or it's going to be completely like unseen. Or like walking into just a shop in the middle of any village or town, you'd be like, oh, that's just a teapot. But like, it's not just a teapot. It's like super magical and very almost hidden. It's like the perfect cover, so that the right person, that's what I'm trying to say, so that the right adventurer, the right player finds it, because it's so specific and kind of cool. So anyways, that was my long-winded story about how I would love to have a lich who chooses a teapot as a phylactery.
I think that's awesome. I don't know if I'd want to drink out of that teapot once it's become their phylactery, but hey.
Somebody might have to dig a hole and put it in it for the rest of eternity, but I still love the idea. I still love the idea.
Great
so
idea.
Much. It's
so
good.
And I'm super into the idea of a lich picking something very, the grain of sand on the beach kind of idea.
Yes.
Where you don't pick something outrageous and amazing and powerful. You pick something so innocuous that no one could ever think to find it.
Because your point is eternal life, so why choose something people are going to find, right? Like you don't want people to ever find your phylactery. Very cool. Well, that took a strange right turn here at the end, but I loved it. Chat, if you're hanging out with us, I'm sure that maybe you're also inspired by the teapot, so start tossing out your ideas. What are your crazy character ideas? Who could have owned this teapot? Who forged this teapot?
Ooh.
Because if it's cast iron, somebody had to make it. I was looking at it. It's a really interesting design. I love the spout of it, like the curve of it, because the body is pretty standard for like a 2-person teapot, but the spout is really beautiful and like super intricate. And I love that the carving continues like up. It doesn't like stop on just the body. You can see it's like on the lid too. It's just really cool.
Well, and in the way that you do know it is a magic item, if you do take a close look, the clouds do seem to drift slowly across it. So it's very subtle, but it is described in the item how the clouds shift and move and change as though you're watching the sky in the wind. Because
my little airbender heart is just puttering at the moment. I love that so much. Okay. All right, here we are. Kind of at the end. I want to thank you so much for coming to chat about your item, for bringing it to the Vaults of Magic, and sharing your creative endeavors with us. We appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Okay, but I can't let you get off the hook that easy. We still have a lightning round of questions.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay,
lightning round. Let's do this.
Okay, I'm gonna have to read it. Here we go. What is your favorite class?
Cleric or bard?
If you could be any weapon, what weapon would you be?
Longbow.
Oh, okay. If you could gift your item to one person, who would it be and why?
I have so many friends. I have all the friends. Every friend. I want them all to have tea. I can't pick. I literally
order.
just a Rolodex of names in my head. I was just like, everybody deserves tea. Give everybody tea.
Yeah. Bulk order, mass shipment. I love it.
Exactly.
I love it so much. All right. Thank you so much, Lauren, for hanging out, for chatting. And for joining Kobold Press for this book. That's been very, very cool. Tell us where, you mentioned earlier, but for those that may not have joined us at the top, remind everybody where they can find you when you're not writing awesome magic items for Vault of Magic.
Best place to find me is on Twitter at OboLauren. I do have a website that I keep mostly updated. It's lauren-urban.com. Or you can come by and play Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms. And I am the community manager for that awesome game. So you can come and find me wherever that game is being played or talked about. Or join me and some amazing DMs and players on Sundays for D4.
Agreed on all those things. Thank you again for being here. Thank you, chat, for being here. We hope you enjoyed the earlier interview with Luke Gygax, and now, of course, this one with Lauren Urban. And this is not the end. The next few Kobold chats will continue to include guest designers that are bringing their amazing items to our vault. So make sure that you are back here, same Kobold time, same Kobold channel, Wednesdays, noon Pacific, so you can stay up to date on, what's happening over here in the Warrens, y'all. Let's see. I think that's it. We will see you all next week. Bye.